And hello again from Fox News in Washington. The Trump campaign, which until now has been known for its larger-than-life candidate, says the boss is ready to tone it down. What's being called a makeover comes as Donald Trump looks poised to sweep 5 East Coast primaries on Tuesday. Paul Manafort, Trump's new top advisor, is behind the effort to rally the GOP around the front-runner. And, Paul, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Chris.
You met with members of the Republican National Committee in Florida this week to try to reassure them about Donald Trump, but in your effort, it raised some new concerns. It was supposed to be a closed-door meeting, but of course somebody taped it. Here's a clip.
The part he's been playing is evolving into the part that now you've been expecting, but he wasn't ready for because he had to first complete the first stage. You'll start to see more depth to the person, the real person. You'll see him in a different way.
Playing a part, see the real person. Trump has been campaigning for 10 months now, and we haven't seen the real man.
What that clip was related to was a question that was asked talking about the settings that he was going to be in. On the campaign setting, you're seeing the real Donald Trump in campaign mode, talking to people who believe in his candidacy. I was dealing with members of the Republican National Committee who have a different role from an organizational standpoint, and they wanted to know about things like, is he going to be giving speeches on policies? Is he going to be involved in settings that are not rally-oriented? And that was the context I was talking about. We were evolving the campaign, not the candidate, and the settings were going to start changing.
Forgive me. It does seem a little bit like spin, because, I mean, in the words, the part that he's been playing, you'll start to see more depth of the person, the real person. You're not talking about rallies versus some other setting.
I was talking about rallies versus
That's
settings.
not what you said.
Well, in the context of that room, that's what I said, and that's what was understood. When it was taken out of context, and the question that was asked to me wasn't prefaced with my answer, you get a distorted thing. Donald Trump said it yesterday on the campaign trail in Waterbury and Bridgeport. He addressed the issue completely. Look, I'm playing when I'm out here, I want to talk to you and to show you who I am in this environment. When I'm going to give a policy speech, I'm going to be giving a policy speech. He said it straight up.
Okay. According to Ted Cruz, and understandably he's not a great supporter of you or Donald Trump, he says what you were saying is that Trump the conservative is just a show. Here's Cruz.
He doesn't believe anything he's saying. He's just trying to fool gullible voters, and he's not going to do any of it. He's not going to build a wall. He's not going to deport anyone. He is telling us he is lying to us.
When you talk about Trump playing a part, Cruz says that's what you mean.
There's the liar, not Trump. I mean, he's got to change the narrative. He's losing. You know, he's on the cusp of having the nomination be mathematically taken away from him. And so he's trying to change the narrative. We never talked about the wall. Donald Trump, I never said Trump wasn't going to build the wall. I never said Trump was going to change any of his position. We never even talked about that in the meeting. Cruz just made that up from whole cloth because he's got to find something that gets people away from focusing on the real campaign, which is next Tuesday, when he's going to lose all 5 states and probably finish third in most of them. He's got a failed candidacy, and you could see in that desperate kind of tactic the kind of way he's trying to gloss over it. Just like he did with Carson in Iowa and with Rubio in Florida, he just makes things up when he feels cornered.
Now, you say he's losing, but in fact, he had a pretty good weekend.
He did not.
Well, look, one of your jobs is to make sure that the delegates that are actually selected, the people who are going to sit in the seats, are Trump supporters who will continue to support him if the convention goes beyond the first ballot. But yesterday, Trump picked up at least 65 delegates. The people sitting in those seats, even if they have to vote for Trump in the first round, are Cruz supporters, and the Cruz campaign says you guys picked up 65 to 2. That's not losing.
Okay, you've been around a long time, Chris. The only vote
Don't
that
rub
matters.
it in,
The only vote that matters is the vote that's cast when the roll call is called. On Saturday, Ted Cruz won 0, not 36, not 66, 0 delegates. What was done on Saturday was simply confirming the results of primaries. Now, most of the conventions that happened yesterday were set in stages a month or 2 ago, and before, frankly, I was involved. That's not the point, though. The point is Cruz doesn't care about what happens in the elections. What Cruz is doing is he's playing fast with the rules and doesn't care about the local concerns. And what you saw in Maine yesterday, for example, Maine, there was a consensus the governor had put together of all the campaigns, and everybody was going to be represented on the ticket consistent with the results that the voters chose in the Maine primary. Cruz, at the last minute, broke the deal and effectively didn't care about the local officials, didn't care about the results afterwards, and yes, he steamrolled it. That's not the Trump approach. We are running the campaign to win the votes on the first ballot, and we're going to win on the first ballot. So all of this party disruption that Cruz is causing, at the end of the day, is only going to hurt the party. It's not going to hurt Trump because he's still going to have the votes cast in the first ballot, and there's going to be no second ballot, which will be very clear before the end of when the process is over on June 7th.
You and I have known each other since the Reagan White House, but after that you went into lobbying, and I think it's fair to say that some of your clients are at the very least controversial. Filipino dictator Marcos, Angolan guerrilla leader Jonas Savimbi, ousted Ukrainian president and Putin ally Viktor Yanukovych, which led to someone calling your firm the torturer's lobby. How do you play it?
You've got to dissect it. Back when I was representing Savimbi, that was the administration's chosen group in Washington. I was working with the administration against, at that time, a Soviet dictatorship that was put up in Angola. In the Philippines, I was tasked to go out there and help bring the transition of Marcos to an end. So,
but Yanukovych, we're talking in the 2000s.
If you look at the results,
he was never an American ally.
If you look at the results of the Yanukovych administration, the agreement that was signed that brought Ukraine into Europe, I was the person who worked with the Europeans to negotiate it, because Yanukovych was committed, and it's a long history lesson which we can have a cup of coffee over sometime, but the role that I played in that administration was to help bring Ukraine into Europe, and we did. We succeeded.
Ted Cruz isn't persuaded by this. He started going after you and the team that you have assembled. Here he is yesterday.
The entire campaign apparatus now is a Washington lobby apparatus. So if you're happy with the corruption of Washington, with the bipartisan corruption of big government, then Donald Trump's campaign is for you.
Your response?
The people he was talking about haven't, for the most part, lobbied for 10 to 20 years. Did they once lobby? Yes. Have they been lobbying for the last 10 or 15 years? Just about all of them, the answer is no. They've been in private sectors outside of Washington.
But his larger point, I think, is you're an insider, the people you're bringing in are insiders, and so Trump's talk that he's anti-establishment or an outsider is no longer the case, and he's the real outsider.
First of all, I'm not running for president. Donald Trump is running for president. And Donald Trump is clearly an outsider. And Donald Trump has clearly established his credentials with the American people by virtue of what he said he's going to do in changing the rigged economy, the rigged banking system, the rigged political system. Again, this is Cruz, because he's got no issues left, trying to confuse a very simple fact that he's about to be mathematically eliminated next week. And look at what he's trying to do in his candidacy. He's trying to say the process doesn't matter. He's trying to say voting doesn't matter. He's trying to say that all that matters is to destroy the party and see who can pick up the pieces on a second, third, or fourth ballot. Good news for him or for the party, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to win it on the first ballot, and it'll be clear on June 7th. And what we're trying to do right now is work with the Mitch McConnells, who we didn't oppose in Kentucky, even though we won the election, and we worked with him to put a unity slate together. We're trying to bring the party together. That's what I was...
Wait, because I think this is interesting. You're saying that you're working with the Senate Majority Leader, who to a lot of the grassroots is a symbol of the problem.
We're working with party officials, and that was an example of Saturday where we won the state. We could have gone in there and tried to be disruptive, as Cruz does in these states. We didn't want to do that because we know we're going to be the nominee. We have to work with these people. What I was tasked to do this past week, including going to the RNC meeting, was to begin to have people who Trump hasn't been exposed to begin to understand that the campaign cares about them, and we're going to run some traditional elections.
Trump raised some new questions this week about his conservatism when he opposed North Carolina's new law, which will set restrictions on which bathrooms transgender people can use. Here's what your candidate had to say.
First of all, I think that would be discriminatory in a certain way. It would be unbelievably expensive for businesses and for the country. Leave it the way it is.
But that night, Trump reversed himself and said, well, no, it's actually a states' rights issue. Simple question, Paul. What does Trump think about the North Carolina law?
Trump thinks what he said, that it's a states' rights issue.
He also said that he thinks leave it alone.
But it's
leave
not,
it the way it is.
But it's not a reversal. I mean, he told you what his position is, and you just had him on air. He said it's a states' right issue. Period. End of sentence.
But 12 hours before or 8 hours before, he said leave it the way it is, and that there doesn't need to be any change. It's a problem in search of a solution.
Well, which it is.
Right, let me rephrase. It's a solution in search of a problem, that there's not really a problem there.
What he said, he was asked a question of his personal opinion in the afternoon, and then he was asked, how do you handle the issue? And he answered that in the evening.
His personal opinion stands.
What stands is what he said when he was asked a specific question of what should happen to this issue, and he said it's a states' rights issue. It should be handled by the states.
Finally, your new team has been talking about the fact that Trump's going to make a foreign policy speech this week here in Washington using teleprompters. He's going to make more serious policy speeches using teleprompters. Are you trying to drag him kicking and screaming to be more presidential?
First, it's not a new team. It's an expanded team. And secondly, the point is we're at a period in the campaign where these things are relevant. Campaigns are a process, and Trump recognizes it, and Trump's attitude has been, first, that he had to establish the credibility of his candidacy, which he did. Then he needed to win primaries, which he did. Then he had to emerge as the presumptive nominee, which he did. And now, as people are looking at him as the Republican nominee and potentially the next president of the United States, there's another stage in the process, and that's what this is.
And is that part of being more presidential?
It's certainly nothing that's contrary to being presidential.
Paul, thank you.
All right, Chris.
Thanks for your time. Yeah. We've been doing this for 36 years, 30 whatever years.
Long time.
And we'll track how the returns come in Tuesday night. Thank you.